Today we're exploring the challenges charities face when impact meets real world constraints and what organisations might learn from the way connection, trust and behaviour shows up. Today we're joined by Katie Dockery, founder of Viewpoint Centre, a charity supporting children affected by trauma. Katie and her team work in a really unique way, using specially trained horses to help children and families rebuild trust, confidence and self-regulation. I've actually visited Viewpoint Centre and had the experience and spent some time with Katie and the horses. And what really struck me was the calmness and the respect in the space. And being around the horses makes you much more aware of how you show up, how you communicate, how you lead and how you connect. And I remember coming away thinking, there are real lessons here, not just for young people and families, but for all of us, but in particular organisations and leaders as well. So today we're going to explore Katie's work, the difference it's making, and some of the challenges charities face when they're trying to grow something that clearly works. Katie, hello and welcome to The Human Advantage. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Well, thank you very much for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. So before the podcast, we kind of do some, kind of exploratory work with you, Katie. And something you said really struck with us, really, and was very, very honest in your questionnaire, that meaningful impact isn't always enough on its own. What do you actually mean by that? Can you, or was there a pivotal point where you realised that?
I think to begin with, when we started, it was just seeing how it was working, understanding that we were getting results. And at that time, in the early days, that was enough. I think what has come more to light, that to sustain and even to expand, us knowing that and the parents knowing that and the school knowing that isn't enough. It certainly doesn't seem to be enough for the funders, because obviously there's a much smaller pot being chased by a lot more people these days.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, sorry, I jumped in with a question because I thought that was such a really honest summary of what you shared. Actually, Katie, we probably should give you the floor to articulate in your own words what Viewpoint does. I mean, I've experienced it and I said a little bit there, but in your words, how would you describe Viewpoint?
I think you did a really good job, actually, Karen, because it is very hard to describe what we do. And as you've experienced, you felt it, and that's the thing that makes the biggest difference. So it's one of our challenges is actually explaining what we do and really how incredibly it works. I regularly have conversations with people and they say, well, just 5 sessions makes the difference. And it hugely does, because we're working with the felt experience rather than an intelligent experience, which obviously a lot of the kids that come to us are not open to. So basically what we do is we've got our specially trained horses that mirror feedback in a non-biased way. And the horses are extremely generous. They allow us to practice and just are happy to give us feedback, and always willing to have another go and practice, which is quite a unique situation. Not many opportunities do we have to achieve that. So the kids that come to us will be shut down for whatever has brought them to us. And one of the main things is that we don't discuss. Our tagline is when talking is not working, and that is something that's very attractive to the kids that come to us, because either they can't or they don't want to talk for whatever reason. And we certainly don't encourage that. We just get in action with the horses on the ground, and beginning with working on engagement and calmness, because if we don't have those two things, we've got nothing, basically. So with the help of the horses, they gradually come down from fight flight, which is where they all are really, or freeze when they arrive, and they start to, with the horses, recognize what they do impacts what the horse does. And so when they practice calmness themselves, they can see the horses are calm. When they're more clear with their body language, the horses are going to understand it a lot more. They just get that space to figure it out, practice and what works. And when they have success, they just get to practice that again and again, and they own that success because nobody is giving it to them. I'm not saying, well done, that's great. I might say that was incredible how Billy did whatever, jumped over the jump, but I'm not going to. It's all about them experimenting and finding for themselves what works, because it's different for everybody. The parents come along, which only happened during COVID, but really was made such a difference in the prolonged good habits, because it is a habit changing intervention.
I think that's really interesting. You referenced the word habit, because the other thing I came away thinking, in particular, I said, we could all learn from being in your arena, for want of a better word. I remember thinking, when you go to a networking meeting, you straight away put your hand out and go straight that person's hand. And actually, Katie, what you did was quite powerful for me. So you kind of first said, how do you get on with horses? And I said, I've always been a bit wary, actually. I've always kept my distance. I've always felt that they're these big, graceful animals. I'm not sure what they're thinking or what they're going to do. And you made me feel very calm. You put me in your arena. Is that what you call it, arena? What would you call your space?
Arena, yeah.
The arena. And you said, I'm going to bring in 3 horses. You stand there, and this is what you need to do if they come towards you. Well, anyway, the horses didn't come towards me. I was most disappointed. But clearly I had this calm aura. But, the reason I thought it would be really powerful for everybody is because you have to learn that we all have our own space. You've got to respect we all have our own space. And, slowly I went up to the horse, and then slowly, kind of made that connection. And then I touched the horse. Or then similarly for an organization, then you put your hand out. You kind of read the room first. And I don't think we do. And so it's kind of, how do you communicate that? I think going to your arena, going to your space of work is just, wow. That's how I came away thinking. But I think for you, it is communicating the impact of your work. I really was quite touched when I came away. But anyway, look, I'm digressing.
It's hard not to with the horses. Well, I obviously think that. But yes, I think the great thing is about the horses is that they've all got their own horsinalities. And so even if you're nervous or you're really excited to see the horses, that still comes across to them as not very coherent energy. So it's still going to be a no from them, whichever one it is. So how they coach us is to be calm and to read ourselves. So if we get a no from the horse, because we don't do anything, just like you say, we don't just go up and touch, we wait for them to give us permission. So it's a great way for us to go, funny enough, he didn't want to touch. What am I doing that's preventing that? Do I need to breathe and actually calm myself before I'm doing that? And often that's what's needed, because we come in and we've got our energy, and for the horse, which is a prey animal, with us who's a predator, being calm is absolutely essential. So so that's really the magic of how it works. And during the course, they get to practice that, the 5-day sessions. They get to practice that. I think someone counted it once, like more than 300 times. So we're practicing, I'm in the situation, first thing I do, calm. And we keep practicing and practicing that, and then it becomes the habit. And as I say, that's what the parents take on as well. Instead of them rushing in, trying to help or whatever, they also learn calm. And then do I need to do something? But the first thing is calm. We can't think if we're not calm. So the calmness is the greatest thing that the horses teach us to begin with.
And in a pressurized world, sorry, Alessandro.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
And I think in a pressurized world that, we all live in now, the pace of life and the demands of life and work and schooling in particular for children, that word calm is, a skill we all need to learn.
Which also affected the quality of our life, but also our work. In fact, I was curious because sometimes when I share what I do, I use the word empathic marketing. So one area is the meta marketing, from metacognition, thinking about thinking. But when I was sharing about empathic marketing, many people label empathy as something maybe soft, something which is less important than, let's say, traditional marketing. So my question for you is, when you notice people and businesses maybe still thinking of what you do as a more equine therapy or maybe a leisure activity, what do you feel is getting lost in the translation?
I think what gets lost is the fact that it's like a nice thing. It's a nice, pleasant experience being around the lovely horses. And actually, sometimes it can be really challenging because they often say no in their way, depending on their personality. So I think that's the biggest misinterpretation, that it's a really nice thing to do, and you maybe outside. And yes, there is that, but actually we are challenging through those interactions to look at ourselves and seeing what the responses are. And the only thing we can change, obviously, is ourselves, because we can't force the horses to change. That is the biggest challenge to get across in a short conversation, which is why, actually Karen coming along and feeling it is really where the power is. But we can't have every single person turning up. I wouldn't have had time to be with the children and the families, but that's a massive challenge.
Do you think if we change, this maybe is a very deep question, but if we change the label, do you think a change in the label also is going to impact the quality of, or like the result that we can get? So if we see this is a more like a ways to maybe become more confident, I label this one as an activity or outdoor activity that helped me to become more confident. Do you think I'm going to get better result compared to labeling this as maybe a leisure activity? So the way that we label something is going to impact the quality of the result we get from this experience.
Massively, but the danger is when we use words, everybody will have their own interpretation of that.
Okay.
I mean, I don't call it equine therapy unless I'm starting in an arena that is just going to be too hard to start with, habit changing equine intervention, which is actually what it is.
Okay.
So depending on my audience to begin with, if I started with that, what does that mean? So I might start with equine therapy for a wide audience and then actually narrow it down. I don't know whether that's right or wrong, but I just think habit changing equine intervention is a little bit quite a tall starting point. What do you think, Alessandro, on that? Sorry, what's your opinion, Alessandro, on that? Do you think that's
for me, when we label something, for example, we label in the past, we label maybe ADHD. Many people label ADHD in order to communicate between different languages the same kind of situation, which is good from a communication point of view, because it's much easier to understand maybe what I'm experiencing if I have a label that I can translate an emotion, like a conglomerate of emotion, into a word. But on the other side, if I think about labeling something, it's going to influence our full potential. If I think I have ADHD, for example, subconsciously, it's going to limit everything that I'm going to do, because I think I have this problem. Why in reality is not a problem. It's a different way of processing information or behaving. So finding the right words, I think, is essential, because as you said, I can label in a way, but some people, they interpret it in a different way. But labeling has also the negative side, because it's going to influence the results.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding, should I put more effort in the right label in order to help a person to really communicate with other people their emotions, or should I more create a storytelling, which from my experience is more a storytelling, where let's say I close my eyes and now I'm thinking about what's the experience of coming to Viewpoint Center. So how can I help a person that had never experienced before working with you, every single step, but also not just understanding, but feeling. So it's a quite deep answer, because from me, be able to have a very strong storytelling is much better than labeling something.
Yeah.
What's your maybe?
I think it's articulating the impact of your work, not what you do, but it's the impact as a result of what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
In particular for a business, probably a business, if I want to have a support from a business, we think about revenue, profit. We don't think about the well-being of our staff, despite we vocalize that we care about them. And if I can open, like, this is a little bit different, but I met, there was a video call where this person said, I use like the experience or the expertise of a horse to help the sales team. So they were struggling to sell, but not to sell in terms of numbers, in terms of empathy. How can I listen to the other person, for example, a client, in order to really give them what they need? So knowing how to translate this experience, what you are already crafted, into something that the business can really understand the benefits, I think is the hardest part. Because we think about numbers, revenue, profit, but not about the mindset or what we experience at the subconscious level.
Yeah, agreed. And I guess with the two different, well, we've got many different audiences. We have the fundraiser audiences, we have the referral audiences, which they, we don't have any shortage of referrals. We've always got a waiting list, unfortunately, waiting funding. So business is another one. So we have to kind of adjust which one we're actually talking to, because they're all looking for different outcomes. So yeah, it's a challenge.
I think that's an interesting one. I do a lot of work around communication, Katie. And in fact, I'm going through a process with an organization right now. How you internally communicate and externally is a really important piece of work that should be done about, what is the message that you want to get out there? You're right that no two people are the same. They want different outcome. They do, but your outcome is still the same. There's still an impact of the work that you do. But it's, if you're having to fit yourself in, a square hole to fit a round box, then perhaps that partnership isn't the right partnership. But it's hard because, as you said earlier, you're all fighting for the same funding pot and for that support. But I'm interested, Katie, we know there's demand across the whole charity sector, because if the charities weren't there, it would be detrimental. I've said this before, it would be detrimental to society because we're fulfilling needs. So we know through your work there's demand. Where do you feel the biggest pressure is right now between what works and your organisation's ability to grow? Where's the gap, do you think?
I think the gap, sadly, is funding. That's, as I say, we've got non-stop referrals. They just, we get referrals coming in every week, and it's just a non-stop battle trying to keep the fundraising going. I think the other thing is because the Restart, which is the course that I've been talking about, is one-to-one with the family and school if possible. We started last October. Forest, we call it Forest Ed because we don't want to mention the word school to put the kids off, that we can provide other sort of lighter touch, if you like, so we can, that more is an environment where we can create more children, groups of children coming along to do a similar thing that they're doing with the horses, experimenting, finding what works in nature and having a bit of freedom really to just try things out for themselves. And that's something that could be much more accessible. And we'd like to introduce a outdoor food and cooking and growing for the same thing, so that we can actually reach many more children with lesser funding. But I think that is the biggest, as I'm sure it is with most is fundraising. However, I think you touched on a point earlier as well. It's communication. And speaking to a couple of other charity founders or CEOs, marketing, getting really good marketing is a massive assistance. And sadly, that's not my forte. Horses, people, marketing, technology, not really. So yeah, I have been realizing over the last couple of months that actually, as we've been saying, getting our message out there is something that we could definitely do better with some more skills.
Not to put all of that aside, I mean, you acknowledge that that's not an area of your strengths. It is also about leveraging what assets you have already got. You are Viewpoint, so you can articulate who you do, what you do. And you mentioned that a lot of your opportunities come through referrals and word of mouth. What do you feel that tells you about the strengths of the relationships you have already formed?
I think it shows that we proved what we do works.
Yeah.
That's why they are happy to resend. In the older days, a lot of schools would actually even use the EHCPs to fund the course themselves, but they're all, you know, coming from a much more limited pot. But yeah, I mean, clearly what we're doing is working, and it is very much in demand, and it's always the funding that is the you know, the stopping point.
Relationships you have got, I mean, you've referenced schools. How have those relationships been born out of?
I think when we first started in 2017, we just had an open day and just invited all sorts of schools, local family services, and it's kind of grown from there, really. And even that, I mean, I'm getting some referrals from CAMS in Reigate and Banstead, which I didn't have before. It was more other areas because they've spoken to colleagues who have said, "Oh, Viewpoint is a good place to refer to." So it seems to be, over those initial relationships, it has fed out to their own contacts. So it seems to be quite a wide. We get quite a few from Epsom and Ewell, which is not that close to us. So yeah, I think when the colleagues are getting together at their meetings and whatnot, they're sharing the word.
So I guess the value of that open day was quite powerful, and we touched on that at the start. That
Yeah.
Coming to see what you do is very powerful because you feel it, you see it, you touch it. However, you know, collectively, you having people turn up is very difficult, but maybe the power of the open day, you know, to come to the table on a set day has been valuable for you to, you know, to start those initial partnerships.
Yes, it definitely was. And we used to have an open day every year. We used to have the Lieutenant of Surrey coming along. We had the sheriff came along. We had two different sheriffs that came along. One of them actually funded 6 places for us. But yeah, I think referral networking is not an area that is needed. It's getting the funders along and them to understand how we the difference that we make. I think the other thing that has helped is because we encourage the referrers to also, if it's school or if it's Reigate and Banstead Children's Services, we encourage them to come to one of the last sessions so that they can actually see for themselves the difference. And they often are just blown away about how the child they referred, wouldn't even mention the word school. And on the last session, they're talking about, well, they were willing to give it a try. And yeah, so the referral side is kind of like an animal that just goes on its own. It's the fundraising that is the challenging part, getting those to come down.
You had a very powerful video that articulated the start of a journey for one, you know, young girl to where she is today, and actually the impact on the family. It was a very powerful storytelling tool, your video.
Yes, yeah, it really is. And funny enough, her mum, who's also in the video, she's recently joined us as a trustee, which is amazing to have lived experience, a trustee of lived experience. So wish I thought that earlier.
When it comes
hindsight, Katie.
When it comes like a fundraising, where we understood that is one of the most challenging for all the charities. So when a partnership stay at the one-off support instead of becoming a long-term, because what you are doing require like resource is not just a one-off, but ongoing support. What do you sense is missing in that relationship with a partnership?
I think I actually don't do the fundraising myself. It's as I said, it's not my area of expertise, and I think probably building relationships with the funders. However, that's a challenge because they often change as well, particularly the larger ones. So I think that in is itself an ongoing challenge. The other thing we're noticing is that pots, funders, trust pots are closing. We've had several that we've had for years, and they are diminishing. So yeah, that is something I would like to know the answer to. How can we get more of a relationship with the funders, and to sort of develop those longer lasting revenue streams? I think the other thing is that my impression is that funders don't really like to be feeling that they're relied on. So yeah, it is.
It's about building resilience now, isn't it? They're looking for more collaborations. They're looking for match funding, that you can stand on your own 2 feet. You've got other connections, and that's become more and more apparent. You're absolutely right, Katie. You know, there's some foundations closing their doors, but I think the strength of charities is collaboration, either with other sectors, other people within the sector, or most certainly building that bank of corporate partnerships, and engagement with other organisations. You've already identified others within the NHS, and I think it is strengthening your model to not rely on one source.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously met at the Gatwick Diamonds business networking, which I joined specifically to try and engage with the business community, because I don't have any connections outside of the health and education sector. So that's obviously already been fruitful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So that's something that I can do myself, and I am sort of slowly working towards more of that route, because we really need to develop those partnerships to really have sustained.
I suppose we should declare you attended a charity workshop I delivered, very much around the challenges that the sector have, to do with communication, storytelling, the diversifying of income, and it's about sharing that information, what's working. We're not competing with each other. We've got our own audiences and we've got our own USPs. You more than ever, you've got horses as well. But so yeah, it definitely is about strengthening who you are, your impact, and then articulating that story so that you're reaching the audiences that can contribute in manpower, in finances, and as you said, strengthening your board as well.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that through the networking that I meet someone who, as a business partner, would actually give the services of marketing, something along those lines that we don't actually have that expertise in. So that's something that I'm really hopeful is going to be fruitful.
Sure. I mean, what do you notice in the partnerships that you have sustained, Katie? What have you noticed about the difference? What have you done at the beginning that has enabled you to retain them?
I think to begin with, maybe because it was new and they thinking this is a great thing to fund, and then year after year, it's like, oh well, we've given funding to them. We've got to actually share the pot with other people. I think there could be some of that happening, and we have had feedback that is the case. They love what we do. They feel like they have to share it around, which is understandable. I think also something that we've seen since after COVID, mental health was pretty easy to get the funding for. Nowadays, obviously, cost of living is a high priority. So again, funders that would have normally funded us for that are now diverting those funds to other revenue streams, organisations that, survival obviously is key. So I think that is all part of it.
So kind of building the trust, articulating who you are, what you do, and finding an inroad where to a corporate partner where in essence you help them achieve their CSR, but not just that, because I don't like that. It's like a badge of honor, but it's more about what you can do for their teams. And it's a two-way partnership that it's beneficial for both. I think the relationships that don't last are the relationships where it's here's a check, and then there's no relationship, there's no partnership. In my experience, the longest term relationships are born out of a shared goal, continued conversation, and you build a rapport with a team, not one individual who might leave. You build a rapport with an organization, and you find something that works for you both. It's got to be beneficial, that's for sure.
Yes, I remember those key points from that very helpful session that you did. And yeah, when I'm at the networking, which I haven't done that much of, I've only just started, but that is something that I'm have in my mind. It's about having a mutual fit and aspirations, not just a tick box exercise. And what can we bring to them? Because basically through the horses, we're teaching leadership skills effectively. But that is something that we could also help with on their side.
Definitely. I mean, look, Katie, the challenges you're having, you're not alone. The sector has got similar challenges, and it's the reason actually Alessandro and I've come together to create the 7+1 framework, because it covers all of those challenges and makes sure that everybody within an organization can articulate the impact, can do the storytelling, can help grow the partnerships. And actually, it's about the sustainability of the organization. It's not what you're doing today, it's where are you heading as well. And sometimes that can be where you can grow the partnerships, because I want to be part of that journey.
Yeah. In particular, I would say like leveraging your existing resources. Sometimes we look at extra resources, but if we don't have the infrastructure, if we don't have the infrastructure to leverage, to use or integrate the new resources, we burn out very, very quickly. The ability of like when we build the 7+1 is to try to think, what are your current resources, where there are like marketing activities, like going to a networking event, one asset that I can leverage even when I'm sleeping. That I think is there is a lot of potential in understanding what you already have that you're not fully leveraging, rather than adding extra resources.
Yes, that makes sense. It's something that's new to me, and something that I'm realizing is very necessary to get that message out to the wider world. Yeah, definitely.
So before we conclude the episode, I usually like to maybe share my understanding, my interpretation of today, and maybe Karen, you have a different one or very similar. The connection with animals, in particular with horses, is invaluable. As I said at the beginning, I know there is like another group that is exactly the same, but for leadership or for sales people, teams that they might feel not confident in front of the person. The only thing that they do, they try to sell rather than listening, because confidence is when you listen to the other person, you try to put yourself in their shoes. On the other side, what I felt today is that impact is very powerful, but impact alone is not sufficient without maybe a strong infrastructure, also like a strong corporate partnership that can help us to unlock ongoing accessibility improvement, but also help us to scale impact. So if everyone wants to support your mission, Katie, what might be the best ways to contact you, to stay in contact with you, with your business?
So you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and our website, www.viewpointcentre.org. Having a look, as we mentioned, the video, which I'm going to ask we move to the front page, of the young person whose whole story, the journey we tell on there, that makes it much more understandable, I think, for people to get an idea. So yeah, any of those places.
There is anything that you think that we haven't asked you that would be very, very important to share with the audience?
I think one thing that, although we're talking about the focus on the children, it's what we all bring. When if I have a family and I have the parent sitting in the corner and the referrer and the child working, or even when I'm having a corporate group and they're watching one of their colleagues, it's that everyone they can actually really help just by mirroring the response that they want.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I can feel the tension if their colleague or their child is struggling with something, and I just and try and get everyone just to relax, breathe and calm, because that, without realizing it, makes a massive impact. So I would just say, just practice. Everyone can do this wherever they are. Just see, can they model what they want in others, by being calm, by being breathing, and it makes such a huge difference because you can do that without words.
Brilliant. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the time. Thank you. Bye.